Morning all, hope you're all well. I'm out again on another dog walk. Believe it or not, before I've even started broadcasting today, I've lost the dog. I've no idea where he's gone. I wanted to do a quick video this morning about Project Big Picture. I did an article on it yesterday morning where I kind of discussed some of what I thought might be the positives to Project Big Picture. Things like, I'm not against losing the League Cup. I've no care less about the Community Shield, the loan deal kind of payments for lower league teams. I like the idea of getting a bigger slice of the cut from the top. I like the idea of. But I did have the caveat that that we needed to drill down a little bit into the detail. Now that's not something that's been available to me. Obviously, I don't get a detailed look at the proposals as the EFL clubs do. I think more information's emerged over the last 24 hours, which just makes it an abhorrent choice, and seemingly one that a majority of EFL clubs are blinded by. And I suppose it's like being a little bit blinded by the money. But there's so much wrong. So much wrong with what emerged yesterday. So many kind of aspects of it that kind of stick in the throat. And the whole situation has made me think that the English game is both completely and utterly broken and the best in the world at the same time. And I'll explain that before I go into too much more detail about my kind of recent thoughts on the Project Big Picture. I mean, obviously the English game is broken. Oh, do I? Sorry, I've got my sorry, Kate. I've got my new thing on. I don't know why. Let me try putting it somewhere else. Try putting it on there. Is that any better? I don't know if that's any better. Maybe it's a bit too close to me. So look, English game broken. In that, yesterday the EFL clubs all have a meeting. The journalists that get spoken to afterwards are told that there's unanimous support for the Project Big Picture, and there isn't. Andy Holt was never going to support it ever. Clive was never going to support it, and Clive was very open last night on social media that if Jez Moxey, I think it's Burton Albion now, but it was at Wolves, if Jez Moxey's saying that it was unanimous and that nobody spoke out about it, he's lying. And that seems to me like almost self-interest. There's just this kind of collection of clubs and owners who have got no problem with Project Big Picture. Dale Vince, wow, shock horror. There's somebody who came out and backed it. Bolton Wanderers, former Premier League club, have come out and backed it. And when you actually drive into it, I think backing it is incredibly dangerous, because people love a conspiracy theory. Well, look at the words that are scrolling at the bottom: Project Big Picture, pictures, TV. It's what it's all about. And I was chatting to my good friend Pete, as I always do, yesterday. And his point was, this is all about big clubs negotiating their own TV deals. And when they do that, then less money is going to trickle down. The Premier League is going to virtually become obsolete, because just the whole thing, once that happens, then, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe I keep calling it Project Restart. Maybe that's what it actually is. Maybe if it does get pushed through and these big clubs become so big that they're not actually part of the English game anymore, there isn't the English game anymore for them, it's this European game, then, pardon my expression, they can fuck off and we can start again with the English game. And yes, there will be casualties, but you would sincerely hope that there would also be a kind of a settling. I mean, I absolutely do not want Project Big Picture now to happen in its current form. I think it's particularly frightening for a good number of clubs. But the reason that I say that it also proves that English football is not broken is supporters. And I think when you look at the reaction of supporters on social media, and I'm not just talking about Lincoln fans, I'm not just talking about kind of the against League Threes and the D3, D4s and the people like that who were always kind of be against this because they do see the big picture, they see it. But it's the rank and file supporters. It's the supporters of Arsenal and Spurs and Manchester United who have actually come out and said, we don't want this to happen. This isn't in our best interests as supporters. This isn't the way the game should be going. And I take quite a lot of heart from that, because I feel that at the very crux of the English game, there will always be supporters. There will always be groups of people ready to start again and do it right. And look, we don't want anything like this to happen, but you look at the likes of AFC Wimbledon, you look at the likes of Aldershot, you look at the news that came out of Macclesfield yesterday. Nobody wants a club to go to the wall, absolutely nobody. But when it does, there's always that kind of rebirth, or nearly always. There are always people who care enough about our game, about our traditions, about our integrity as football fans to just start again. And to a degree, I mean, I used the analogy yesterday that basically the Premier League was a zip that had been pushed and pushed and pushed, and English football was a kind of a whelp, and coronavirus was just the final punch, the final push that pumped all the bad out for everybody to see. And I think that's still the case. But I also think that there is the good there to see as well. There are the good owners, and I don't always agree with everything Andy Holt says. I think he's an interesting owner. You can't dispute the good that he does at Accrington, the focus that he has on his own club. Oof, that's not good. You know, and obviously Clive's a fantastic owner as well. Morning, Emily. So it's, you know, there are positives there to see, and I think you always, you know, I put on an article the other day, wherever there is a negative I try and see a positive, wherever there's a positive I try and see a negative, because I think that's what gives you balance. And you know, the people that kind of are unable to do that offer kind of one-sided arguments, if you know what I mean. So I think there are positives to see from Project Restart, or Project Big Picture, call it Restart again. Not in the way that they want to implement it. And I actually think the more I've kind of pondered on it and I've slept on it, and I like to play things over. Morning, Dom. I've formulated an opinion, and I always say that I'm never afraid to change in my opinion either. You know, if I have an opinion and then I believe somebody changes my mind, or something is fundamentally wrong, or it was based on incorrect facts or whatever, I'll change it. And I was open to Project Big Picture for the benefits that it may offer, but not in the present form, and not depending on obviously the kind of the voting rights that it gave the Big Six. And if the Big Six had sort of voting rights to say in 2 years' time, we're not going to give you the money anymore, oh, we voted it through, it's ridiculous. And what they've done, in my opinion, is they're like the fire service turning up at your house when your house is burning down, pulling up outside, blue lights, yay, we're going to be saved. And then they stand on your garden, at the front of your garden, and saying, we're not going to put the fire out till you give us your telly. And you throw your telly down, they take it, and it's like, right. And now we basically want to be able to come around and use your lounge as and when we want, once the fire's out. Yeah, no problem, just save us. Brilliant. Throw your program collection out as well, we'll have that. And that's what it feels like. We're being held to ransom in a time of crisis. Absolutely. Right, so I've got some comments. Worrying thing for me, money talks and a lot of clubs are financially stretched. Government don't seem to care. That's my next point. I've actually written to my local MP this morning, Victoria Atkins. She won't give a toss because she never does. She's a cabinet minister, I believe. So, you know, what does Louth and area mean to her? Very, very little. But this situation with us not being allowed back into grounds is getting beyond a joke when you see some of the other pictures that come around. And look, yeah, I know I'm not going to say it's a lazy comparison to make, but when you look at the London Palladium, you know, I've looked at some of those photos, and there's a lot of people there, 1 seat apart, inside, they're having to squeeze past each other on the roads if they want to go to the toilet and that sort of thing. Many of them not wearing masks. And I just think, why? They say that part of the argument is that the problem is fans getting to games. Okay, I would buy that, but there's no problem with people going on the tube to get to work. There's no problem in keeping pubs open. If you don't want people to go to pubs, you know what to do? Close the pubs. Don't close the football grounds. It's ridiculous, because people can go to the pubs to watch the football. It's bizarre. I mean, I keep saying it, but there was the situation at Weymouth, I think, Wealdstone, where they were playing Chesterfield, and they were able to beam the game into their bar. Fans could pay to go and watch it in the bar, but with windows that looked out on the pitch that had to be blacked out so that the fans couldn't see the football. Why? COVID's not going to get you through the fucking window, is it? And I know that, I mean, I don't rant often. I try and, as Pete, as my friend Pete back here has said somewhere, Mr. Balance Man, I do try and be balanced. I do. But there's no rhyme or reason to it. There really isn't. I know that Lincoln City are the sort of club that could host 2,500 fans in the ground, socially distanced, wearing masks. And okay, they're saying, well, some people may misbehave any more than they were doing in Oxford Circus or Oxford Street at 10 o'clock on kicking out time, when they're partying until midnight on the streets, like it's some sort of festival. And look, I'm not talking about a north-south divide. And there is evidence for that. I've seen suggestions on social media that certain cabinet ministers' areas are not being closed down when they should be. I try not to buy into the conspiracy theories, but I don't understand why football is being shut down, and the country isn't. That's the thing. If it's too dangerous for me to go and sit next to my dad, who can come and sit in my lounge anyway, and then a seat or two away, another fella sat with a mask on. If it's too dangerous for that to happen, how can I then drive down to London and go on the tube and have a drink in central London at midday? How could that happen? What is the scientific reason for that? And look, I know that I'm getting a bit political here, but Keir Starmer talked about having a circuit breaker lockdown, and nobody really wants that. But if that's what it's going to take to then have a reset and start thinking properly about the rules, instead of this muddled, you can go to the pub, you can't go to the pub, you can do this, you can't do this, it's just utterly pathetic. And it's that sort of indecision that's leading to this project big picture, because clubs don't know what's happening next. And if you were living, and again, this is another analogy, Ben would be proud, but if you're living on the streets and you don't know where your next meal's coming from, and somebody offers you food to go and punch your mate, and you're starving, you go and punch him. And that's the way football clubs are at the minute. Basically, they're offering us this money. Some football clubs don't know where their next meal's coming from. They really don't. And like Helgi says here, clubs have no choice but to take it or die. The big six get their own way, nothing but Wolves. Luckily, Clive's our shepherd. Absolutely 100%. 100%. And when you look at the detail, they're almost like wolves in sheep's clothing, because they've put on the sheep's clothing and they've said some of the things that lower league clubs want to hear. For instance, possible loan development fees, money, more money, a bigger slice of the pot. And everyone's going, oh yeah, that sounds great. That's what we want. That's definitely what we want. But in actual fact, underneath the Trojan horse of benevolence, there's just this horrible, nasty kind of army waiting to come out and just slash the way through the English Football League. There goes your television rights. There goes your Sky. And it all started in '92. I said it yesterday on my article. The Premier League has created its own problems. And as I understand it, the Premier League are not behind the changes. Well, they won't be, will they? Turkeys don't vote for Christmas unless they're EFL member clubs. And then they do. Pete Summers, it's disgusting opportunism from owners that don't care for their own fans, never mind other clubs or the pyramid. Let me stress, that comes from a Man United season ticket holder. Which is why I say that English football is in a decent state in terms of the supporters. The EFL clubs might be happy to blindfold themselves and walk off the cliff like lemmings, or some of them, a majority if you believe Jez Moxey and Peter Ridsdale. My God. Who would ever believe Jez Moxey and Peter Ridsdale? Those two could stand in front of me and tell me that outside the sky was blue and the grass was green, and I would probably consider my position on that. It's just, the names that are coming up in this whole thing. Rick Parry, Jez Moxey, Peter Ridsdale. Awful. Liverpool owners, Man United owners. People that live away from this country that have in my opinion, no conception of what football means at a base level. You're talking about owners that live in a country that happily move one club from a city to another because there is no community. One minute you can be the Miami Dolphins, the next minute you might be the Kentucky Dolphins. It's just, sport in America is different to everywhere else in the world. No promotion and relegation from the MLS. So what do they care? What do they care about the regional leagues? They don't understand it. I apologise because I've ranted a bit this morning. It's not entirely Lincoln City. But for a moment, maybe I was a little bit fooled by some of the proposals. For a moment, maybe I thought, actually, there are facets to this which are positive. And I do think that there needs to be some sort of discussion around not just a free bailout, because I don't think that was ever going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't. But a better slice of the money. When Lincoln were in the conference, how much were we on the TV? More than bloody Emmerdale. Since we've been in the Football League, and bear in mind we've won a title, won the Checkatrade Trophy, sustained Tier 1 Tier 3 football for the first time in our history, twice topped League One. How many times have we been on telly? Nada. Are you telling me that there is a bigger market for watching us play Dover in the National League than there is for watching us play Sunderland? No. That's no disrespect to Dover, but no. The Sky don't show these games because then the money is these different people would put. I'm losing it here. No, but seriously, do the watching public believe, or do Sky believe, that the public would rather watch Brighton and Watford on a Sunday afternoon than they would watch Lincoln and Sunderland? I don't know that there would be that much in terms of different viewing figures. If they wanted to show, if they showed more games, then maybe they could have a bigger slice. I don't know. I'm kind of going off kilter a little bit here. It's all about power. It's all about TV. You know, when do people hark back to football golden days? Predominantly the 80s. And the first TV deal was signed when? Late 80s. And that's when top flight football began to lose its soul. Lower league football hasn't lost its soul. Lower league football is you. It's people like Emma Crellin. Clive can see the paragraph. It's people like Keith Fletcher. It's got to be said, don't worry about ranting. It's people like Graham Burrell. How long before the Glazers decided they want to move their franchise to a new stadium in London? It's even about people like Pete. I hope they do, and soon, because there'll be riots that needed to remove them. Football fans. It doesn't matter, really, whether you're top, middle or bottom, Premier League, Championship or League One. Proper football fans oppose this. The ones that you see arguing on social media about which club should actually be in the Big Six, which clubs should actually be on the Big Nine, they're the new generation of football fan that don't understand what football is. They think that it's a FIFA game. They think it's Football Manager. They think it's a television show. Do you know what? Fuck them. Because football's not that. It's not. Football's your local club. Football's memories of going 30 years ago and standing on freezing cold terraces and watching your team get absolutely whooped. It's about meeting friends. A lot of people whose comments I'm putting up here, my main connection with is football. Not to say that I don't like those people. Of course I do. I like everybody who takes time to be nice and to talk to me and to interact with the site. Like Bubs. Yeah, I know Bubs through football. It's a lifelong friendship that has been forged over a love of Lincoln City, over going to games, over interacting. Me and Pete first got chatting properly over football, over a fantasy league that I used to run at school. Kate, through running the IMS TK years ago, through football. Even look, Ash is sat over in the Philippines at the moment. Love the passion, Gary, and wholeheartedly agree Greedy's taking over the game. I know Ash through writing about Lincoln City. It moves people's lives forward, football. You know, this is going to sound absolutely awful, but when my dad is gone, what memories will I have? I'll have memories of being at the football with him, of going on away days with him. You don't get that from sitting at home watching Sky. I won't look back to the day on his birthday when he came around and we lost 2-1 to Bristol Rovers and we sat watching it drinking tea, will we? I'll look back to when we went away to Accrington, when he nearly got arrested at Port Vale for inadvertently telling the police to fuck off. Stuff like that. Memories. No, I'm ranting. I'm raving. I've got angrier as this has gone along. I've almost fed myself anger, because I think through the course of the morning, through the course of the last 24 hours, you know, fear is set in that Project Big Picture could actually get voted in by people like Peter Ridsdale, who hops from one club to another, by people like Jez Moxey, who hops from one club to another, by people like Dale Vince that never got football anyway, that wants to turn football into something that it's not, by people like Bolton Wanderers who are run by companies. You know? And then you look at the clubs that are opposing it. You look at the likes of Andy Holt, who runs arguably the smallest club in League One, who struggles every season to balance the books but still puts a decent side out. People like Clive, who, I actually pulled Andy Holt up on something the other day on Twitter because he had put about foreign owners ruining football. No, they don't. Irresponsible owners ruin football. It's nothing to do with nationality. Clive Nates is Lincoln City through and through. It doesn't matter that he's based or he's come over from South Africa, because he cares and understands the game. It doesn't matter where you're from. If you understand the game, if you care about communities and clubs and people, it doesn't matter how much money you've got if you care about communities and clubs and people. And I don't know his stance, but I think, is it Simon Hallett? Is it Hallett at Plymouth? American based, pumped money in to keep Plymouth going, understands Plymouth. Just because he's from America doesn't. If you're from America, it doesn't make you less as a fan. Look at Dave Johnson. Dave Johnson, Lincoln fan through and through. Comments on the forum, comments on here when he can, watches the games live. Just because he's American doesn't mean he doesn't get it. He does get it. Simon Hallett, American. I think he supported Plymouth because of the Pilgrim angle. Gets it. Rob Cohig, I think that's pronounced right, at Wickham, actually followed the real EFL the other day because I said it's not foreign owners, it's irresponsible owners. Let's not make this about xenophobia. It shouldn't be about that at all. It's about people. And unfortunately, the big six, whoever I upset, their owners don't care about people, but the clubs do. The fans do. You're telling me that somebody like Marcus Rashford, for instance, you can't taint him with the Glazers brush. All the good work that he does, he understands people and communities. Anyway, Steve Race, thank you. You see powerful speech. I just see messy rant into the camera, which I don't normally do, but there we go. Chris Keneally, Manchester born and bred, grew up in the Stretford End, hate the Glazers, everything that's wrong with football, top six, cannot see happening. Pete Summers, I think actually that's in response to Jimmy Newley. Most Premiership Football Club followers would sooner have cheaper tickets back in the shitty old grounds. A package has been forced upon them. Proper supporters would. The half and half scarfers. I'm over from London for the weekend. I want to go and watch Man United and I've got 8 million quid in my pocket. They're the sort of people that probably wouldn't. Pete agrees. Give me Hillsborough, the City Ground, over some soulless bowling out town industrial estate every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Well, every day of the week might be a 5:45 kickoff though. Something like that. And Ash, 100% wasn't a rant. Made some great points. Thank you, Ash. No, I'm going to disappear now. Some good news on the top 100. I have already secured, that's two. I've just had one pop up. Secured 2 legends who are going to have a chat with me. One who's finished in the top 5, another who's finished in the top 15. I've got a current player who's finished, let's say, in the top 30. They're all going to be chatting to me. I'm just waiting for a couple more. I will be contacting a couple of fans over the course of the week, particularly interested in supporters who can talk with clarity about some players from the early 80s who might have been included. If that's you, drop me a DM. So I'm going to be interested in getting people on who perhaps saw players that myself and Ben didn't, who have made it into the top 25 for the podcast next week. Hopefully, I'm going to discuss with Ben tomorrow. I think that we're going to be filming probably around 7 o'clock next Thursday. So keep it free, get yourself a few beers in. If you don't drink, make sure you've got a pot of coffee on or whatever, because it's going to be a good show. There won't be any ranting. I'll be sat down so I won't lose my dog. I will by then have had a haircut, because I desperately need one. And apparently I've got to trim the beard as well, and this says. Project Big Picture, fuck it.